All right, I'm live. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. My name's James, and I run the channel, The Golden Rule Philosophy. And today I have an awesome guest on the show. It's my first show, by the way, my first live stream. His name is Dr. Will Tuttle, and he is a visionary author of the acclaimed bestseller, The World Peace Diet. Published in 18 languages, he's a recipient of the Courage of Conscience Award and the Empty Cages Prize. He's also the author of Food for Freedom, Reclaiming Our Health and Rescuing Our World, on the interconnection of health, freedom, and animal liberation, as well as the newly released book, The World Peace Way, 6 Keys to Health and Harmony for All, exploring and illuminating practical steps we can take to maximize our individual and collective health. Wow. Okay. So I would like to present Dr. Will Tuttle. I'm going to add him in right now.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, doing great. Thanks so much for doing this, by the way. I really appreciate it. This is my very first live stream. And I'm just so happy you could be a guest for my first live stream. So I guess to begin, do you think you could give maybe the viewers kind of the crux of your books and your work, and kind of let them know exactly what it entails, and to whatever degree you could?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Right now I'm in South Florida in Hippocrates Wellness Institute, and
nice.
continuing basically the work that I've been doing for the last 45 years, which is to help, in a sense, expose the devastating impact of animal agriculture, and also the many benefits of transitioning to a organic and plant-sourced way of living, a vegan way of living. And so that's taken many forms over the years. So I've written quite a few books. The main one that most people are aware of is called The World Peace Diet, Eating for Spiritual Health and Social Harmony. And that book became a #1 Amazon bestseller worldwide in 2010, and subsequently was translated into, I think, about 19 languages now. And so my wife Madeline and I have done a lot of outreach, traveling all over the world. We've been to over 50 countries in all 50 states, giving lectures and presentations and workshops and retreats and so forth to help people make that transition. So I think probably actually at this point I've given more lectures promoting veganism than anyone who's ever lived. I think over 4,000. I mean, that's all we did. We lived in an RV for 17 years without a house, just traveling and just doing that. And we've been on the road about half the year ever since then. So since 2012, we got a house in Northern California and have a garden there. But basically, that's it. I have a couple of new books that just came out this year. One is called Food for Freedom, and the other is The World Peace Way. And we have online trainings. My wife has lots of cooking videos to show how to prepare food in a healthy and delicious way. And it's fantastic.
And you guys have a
way to
veganic
live,
food forest. I think that's so cool.
Right. Yeah, we do.
That's
Yeah,
unbelievable. Well, I'll tell you, I read The World Peace Diet probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and I had been a vegan for 3 or 4 years up until then. And when I read it, I was just inundated with such potent perspectives, and it just re-solidified my decision to go vegan, and really gave me some different tools of which I could communicate with to people and maybe appeal to their ethos with. And I recommend that to everybody, vegans, non-vegans, all of us as expressive vegans, vegans that want to convey the message of, the golden rule and the World Peace Diet. That the World Peace Diet is just such a profound, unbelievably just legendary body of work. And I just really appreciate you for writing it with all your, years of life harvested wisdom. So thank you for the backdrop on your work. So I made this live stream today, or I wanted to make this live stream today, to kind of give vegans some different insightful tools that they can use to and when they do outreach and activism with others, and maybe different notions of which they can adopt and then kind of exact into their communication with others when it comes to spreading the vegan message. So I wrote down some bullet points or some things from your work that maybe you could amplify on and talk about for a few minutes that I think would be very helpful to us. The first one is herding culture, and how you talk about herding culture and how it's been around for 10,000 years, and it kind of eclipses all things as far as our everyday influences and things along those lines, and how it kind of wounds us from birth and takes away our purity to a degree against our will, against our own volition. So can you describe to us how you would describe herding culture in its
Right.
effect?
That's it. Thank you, James. That's a very perceptive question, I think, and and a critical one, really, because
Yeah,
it's invisible, right? I mean, we don't think of ourselves as living in a herding culture. We think of a herding culture, people far away with maybe some kind of implements to poke sheep with, walking around, and we
yeah,
don't realize we are in a herding culture. Now it's computerized, it's industrialized. Animals by the thousands are stuck away in these stinking sheds where we never see them. But it's massive. We're talking about literally killing millions of animals every day, probably billions of animals every day if we include factory farmed fish. It's like we're herding fish now as well. 2/3 of the fish that we're eating are basically factory farmed, living in
yeah,
aquaculture operations. And so the whole thing with herding animals, and as I talk about in the World Peace Diet and also in my new book, Food for Freedom, this is something that was really, I think, an unrecognized revolution, probably the primary revolution that our species, at least who we are now, has experienced. And it was about 10,000 years ago, we pretty much can see that. People for the first time started to own animals as property for food. And that is a whole different thing from hunting. I mean, hunting is one thing. You're going out into their living room and killing them, but they're at
yeah,
least living. But once we started, our forebears started to literally own them as property, enslave, imprison them. And then the thing that really, I think, where they really crossed the line
yeah,
was then impregnating them against their will, and that sort of sexual violence on an ongoing routine basis. That's really a dark thing, actually. And so um, that
yeah,
forced them to somehow rationalize and legitimize this and create sort of religious and other narratives that would justify that God wants us to sacrifice animals to him and that kind of
yeah,
thing to somehow justify what was a really a terrible behavior.
yeah,
And so there's many reasons, no one knows why people started doing it. Some people say there were uh, some kind of maybe climactic conditions that forced them into this extreme behavior of herding animals, but it stuck and it continued on. And these herding cultures that apparently, from what we can tell, they became more violent and warlike and patriarchal and started just taking over other cultures and spread from the eastern Mediterranean region to the sort of northern Mediterranean to Central Asia to Europe, and then through the colonial period, spread throughout the world. And here we are. Virtually the entire world now is
yeah.
basically
Inundated.
engulfed in herding
Yeah,
animals, right? I mean, anywhere you go, you'll find Kentucky Fried Chicken and Burger King and McDonald's and Conagra and Cargill and the World Economic Forum and these big banks and huge
yep,
corporations and the whole and food that basically comes from animals that were raised in confinement. And so that's the wounding
yeah,
that is invisible. It's like if you take a free living animal and you try to put them in a cage, they fight and they resist and they don't like it and they just hate it. But
yeah,
if you take little baby animals, as soon as they're born or have them born into captivity, they don't know any better. They're just
yeah.
that's what they think is reality. So we've been born into it. Like we've been
Yeah.
born into drinking milk, like drinking the secretions
Yeah.
of cows, right? We've been born into this whole system. We think it's normal and natural, and that
Yeah.
it's absolutely, essential for us to be healthy. And I was wounded the same way, and I went through
Me
about
too.
20 years, and most
Yep.
people, virtually all of us do. And so to
Yep.
actually be able to see this, and then to have
Yeah.
whatever it takes to question it and go against the tribal food. That's the thing, food is
Yeah.
tribal. And at a very deep level, we're all tribal. We're very good at picking up on the cues of the people around us, and what to eat, what to think, what to say, and don't be
Hmm.
different. We want to get along. We want to be like everybody
Yeah.
else. And so
Yeah.
when you say, I'm not going to eat the tribe's food, that's a huge no-no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it takes a
Absolutely.
lot to quite, that's the hardest thing to overcome, really, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been painted as this normal, necessary, and nice thing that everybody thinks when it comes to eating, animals, and definitely a product of that kind of genesis of herding culture 10,000 years ago. I was doing a street outreach probably like 3 weeks ago, and in the chat, I have a lot of people in the chat. Some are non-vegan, or most of them are non-vegan, and I have a lot of vegan friends as well. But there's a lot of anger, and it's almost palpable, the kind of negative energy
Mm.
surrounding this kind of taboo subject. But one guy, he saw what I was doing, and he said, "Who hurt you?" So it was kind of like, oh, you've been bullied. You obviously want to express something. You're out there. But he said, "Who hurt you?" And the second I heard that, what I thought was, well, who hurt you? I didn't say that, but hurting culture is what hurts everybody and wounds us, and it's invisible, and we don't even know it. And I didn't respond to him like that, because it would have been way too long-winded and maybe too much for what I was doing at the moment. But it did go through my head, how we're
Right.
so blinded by this titan of hurting culture. Um, so that
Yeah,
was a
and
really kind of,
it's interesting that those two words are so similar.
yeah,
And there's that old saying, hurt people hurt people. There's an idea that if we're
never thought about
wounded,
that.
we
Yeah,
do wound other people. We can't help it in a way.
yeah,
It's people that are sexually or other ways abused as children. Very often, when they get older, they do the same thing.
yeah,
And so that's one of the big tragedies, I think, in our society, is that all of us are wounded. It's not our fault. And it's done. And the irony is, of course, it's done by very loving, well-meaning people. My mother really wanted to make sure I was strong, got lots of protein, lots of
yeah,
calcium, strong bones and teeth and all that. So
yeah.
we're just giving kids huge amounts of foods that are really not hard for us to deal with, actually, just from a physical health point of
Yeah,
view. But at a deeper level, like I discussed in the World Peace Diet, what it does to us psychologically, to have the attitudes that are required to eat animal-based foods. These are not
yeah,
attitudes that are in our best interest. They're, in many
yeah,
ways, they're totally opposed to our best interest.
absolutely. Well, thank you for addressing that, amplifying on that. Um, I think that's great kind of information, and great kind of um, just tools, and just perspectives, and just ways for us to think about things, of which we can kind of imbue onto people when we talk to people as well. And the second thing I wanted to bring up was religion, and the golden rule. A lot of us, when we're out there, you were talking to people, religion comes up so much, and
Right.
it's such this leverage that just like overshadows everything. And they say, well, it says this in the Bible, and it says I can do
Yeah.
this. And I like to say, well, there's historical context there too. Maybe back in these biblical times, there was a kind of a must that took precedence. Like they had to do this to survive. But now we don't. And then I kind of bring it back to how Jesus was one of the most, if not the most, benevolent people that ever lived. And if he was here today, he would be one to be vegan and protect, and not one to exploit. But how do you address that with religion? How would you address somebody coming up with a reason to not go vegan because of their religion, because their religion says it's okay? How would you address that?
The thing is, as soon as we're at that level of trying to formulate words to
Yeah.
respond to someone's reason for eating animal foods, we've already lost in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
you can respond. I mean, the point is, it's not so much what we say, it's who we are.
Yeah.
That and the way the everything about who we are, we're communicating. We human beings are not just robotic, um, throwing concepts back and forth. We're
Hmm.
living beings, and our tone, our gestures, our eye contact, our just everything about us is really
Yeah.
like way more important than whatever words come out of our mouth in many ways.
Yeah.
I can formulate the perfect verbal response, but it's
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not. I
Yeah. But
mean,
it's more
so
so our,
I guess the thing is the main thing is that people will listen to me to the degree that they feel like I'm listening to them.
yeah.
And the main problem is that, and I know this, I've been trying to get the world to go vegan for 45 years, like that's
Yeah.
been like the thing. And I learned finally over the years that you can't argue people into going vegan, like,
Yeah.
because first of all, we're a tiny minority.
Yeah.
They're in the majority. They're in the vast, overwhelming majority. They can look at us and say, whatever, you
Yeah.
guys are just or fringe. So it's about embodying what veganism is, which is love. I mean,
Exemplifying.
at
Yeah.
the core, what veganism is loving kindness for other living beings. And so the main problem really in our movement, which is very understandable, is like if we make this effort and we awaken out of the cultural trance of eating animal foods, then we feel that we're somehow right and everybody else is wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what we think. We're right. It's better for the animals, better for the environment, better for our health, better, better, better. We know
Yeah.
all that. So we're right, they're wrong. Okay. So now we're our whole posture toward the rest of the world is whatever they say, whether it's religion or environment or health or cruelty or whatever thing, their grandmother, whatever, we're right and they're wrong. That's the underlying fundamental uh, platform that we're
Yeah.
operating from. And so then from that comes this basic assumption that, well, my job is to change you. My job is
Yeah.
to make you like me because I'm right, you're wrong. I'm in the light, you're in the dark. I'm going to try it. So then we have this whole movement of people who go around trying to change other people and make them like us. And if
Yeah.
someone came up to me and like, well, they were right, I was wrong, and then the healthy thing for me to do is to fight back, to defend
Yeah.
myself, to try to think, no,
It's
no, no, no.
reflexive.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just that's what we would do
Yeah.
ourselves. And so that's the reason we make very little progress compared to what we could,
Yeah.
because it's much easier to see other people as the problem and change them than it is to actually see that I'm still the problem. I mean, even if we go vegan, see, that's the thing. People
Yeah.
think if they go vegan, then they're done. I'm
Yeah.
vegan. I did my work. I'm done. I'm okay. Now I got
Yeah.
to just make everybody else. And so my work really for the last, and Madeline too, my wife, we do this together. But the basic idea is that the only person I can change is myself.
Yeah.
If I try to, as soon as I try to change other people, I'm going to meet resistance and it's not going to work. And the magical irony is that the more I work on myself and do the best I can to bring my own life into alignment with what veganism is, which is loving kindness and compassion for other living beings, including human beings, because they're much more irritating than cows and pigs and chickens. They
Yeah.
say things on Facebook and they do all this. So that's our real test. So the more I can embody that in my relations with human animals,
Yeah.
then the weird thing is they start going vegan, all around.
Yeah.
Not because I'm trying to make them go vegan, but I'm just basically bringing the good news that
Yeah.
this body does not require animals to eat to be healthy. I don't have to eat animals to be healthy and thrive. And so then when I respond to a question like you're saying, like, well, what about, people say, well, Jesus ate fish, or,
Yeah.
right after the flood, God said, you can eat whatever you
Yeah.
want, all these things,
Yeah.
it's in the scriptures, right?
Hmm.
And so basically I think the way forward in those situations is to just resist the temptation to be right. And
Yeah.
because we are right on one level, but to resist the temptation and just agree, basically agree. Yes,
Yeah.
I hear you. I know that's really true. I mean, it's Jesus ate fish in the Bible, and you think, and then just
Yeah,
say, and then just use I statements, I just say like, gosh, I for years I believed all that, and I can still see it's true, but I just realized, I discovered, or just use I statements, I discovered that actually
yeah,
I don't need to eat animal foods to be healthy, and I've been doing it now for 10 years or however long it's been, a couple of years,
yeah,
and it's been going great. And then I thought about it some more, and I realized, maybe if I was living back then, maybe everybody did it, they had to survive, but I'm sure someone with spiritual sensitivity would find it hard to actually kill an innocent animal if they didn't need to. So I've
yeah,
found it's just great. I don't need to, and it's great without trying to change
yeah,
the person, without trying to
yeah.
convert
Without
them.
being
Just
crass or
speak our
overbearing.
own truth,
Yeah,
and without trying to change, and plant a seed, and then
yeah,
their own person's wisdom, I think, eventually will start to water that seed, and they'll realize,
yeah,
because 150 years ago, people held the Bible in their hand and said, right here in the Bible it says it's okay to have slaves. Paul says it right here. You can buy and sell people. It's
yeah,
okay. And people use the Bible for slavery. People use the Bible for everything.
yeah,
And so we don't, if we try to argue and debate, then we
yeah,
just create resistance, and people will always find something. And then people start talking about vegans. Oh, they think they know everything, and they're the
yeah. It
most
kind of
irritating
backfires
people
to a
ever.
degree.
And
Yeah, yeah,
so I think, it's much more difficult to do the inner work, to just be kind and loving, and not, and just see the best in people, and
yeah. I emanate
understand
that.
that people have been wounded. If someone's wounded, you don't yell at them and spit at them and say they're bad and evil. And you got to be loving and just shine the
Yeah,
light, and
yeah,
trust the bigger process. The other thing is that it's a ripening process. I think in many ways, people hear the message a number of times before they ripen to the point where they think, I'm going to try this, right? So maybe they
yeah,
have to hear the message maybe 30 times from different people as weeks and months and years go by. And maybe you're number 13 on the list of 35 or whatever. You
yeah,
think, well, I talked to the person, it didn't help. But you planted your seed. If you plant it with love and kindness, other people do
yeah,
the same thing. At a certain point, the ripening happens. It's a healing that has to happen. We're
yeah,
wounded. We're told that by people we love and respect, our teachers, our ministers, our doctors, our parents, our friends and neighbors and relatives. Everybody's telling us to eat animal foods, and we did it. So
yeah,
someone else comes along and plants a seed,
yeah,
then eventually it's a ripening. And if you go to an apple tree and you don't start yelling at the apples that aren't ripe yet, and say,
yeah.
hurry up, they'll
Yeah, so
ripen,
true. That's a
they'll
great
do it. They'll have their
analogy
they
there.
have their own thing. And
Yeah,
for me, really, I've been a student of world religions for a long time, and I think it's good to see the big picture, beyond, really, quite honestly, for myself. I see the bigger picture, even beyond just one lifetime. I see, like, this is one of many, perhaps. Just do the best in every moment, every day, every week, every month, every year, every lifetime. Just do the best we can to be a vehicle of kindness and compassion, right? We don't
yeah,
know the big picture. The big picture, we don't know. But
yeah,
to do the best we can as we go along. So
yeah. That's a
that's
perfect
it's a good
answer
question. Yeah.
to my question. Thank you so much. One of the things that I've taken from your work, and I think I read in Food for Freedom, was that it doesn't make sense to come off as self-righteous or oh, I'm so right when communicating the message to others, because it wouldn't make sense, because we're all interconnected. And that was one of your posturings, and that really resonated with me. And I guess I've been doing outreach on the street now for, I guess, around a year. And I noticed in the beginning a lot of volatility around my own emotions and fielding these emotions. And in hindsight, maybe coming off way too strong and way too reflexive when addressed with a certain point. And as I've kind of climbed that learning curve of just realizing things as I move forward and realizing what feels right. It's definitely come down to an aura of friendliness, warmth, and invitingness that I think is the best canvas of which to appeal to others with. And
Right.
so I really appreciate your answer to my question there, and it kind of makes us think we should. Um, address these things very lightly, because people aren't going to change their mind just like that because we address religion. I totally understand what you're saying. We address our our perspectives on religion and what it would entail. I think they'd more so respond to how you just displayed that with a very kind of understanding and just understanding way of things.
Well, also, there's one other little thing I just want to mention too.
Yeah,
When you're in a situation like you're doing with street outreach or anytime, or just talking to people and so forth,
yeah,
it's also important to use your intuition, I think, and in a situation, because sometimes we have the idea, well, I should always be a certain way. I should always try to be loving and kind and nice. And that's true, but in a certain sense. But there's also this saying, for example, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, people long to be settled. Only to the degree that they are unsettled is there any hope for them.
yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that basically our job as vegans is to unsettle people. I mean, it is
Hmm.
to make them uncomfortable. That is part of it.
Yes.
So, but we make them uncomfortable, not in a, without the ego,
The
anger,
ego
kind
eclipsing
of
things.
being
Yes.
right.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's to do
Yeah.
it in a way. And so I found sometimes for myself, some people pull out of me a very gentle kind of approach. Some people seem to pull out of me like a more like strong, kind of a approach. And I think sometimes that is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Absolutely. I've noticed
to kind of
sometimes I.
really like
Yeah.
plant the seed kind of strongly,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
to help
yeah.
people, to push through some resistance maybe. So you got to be be intuitive. I think it's really,
Yeah. I think
see that and,
intuitiveness.
tune into what the person, where their interests actually are. If it's more into environment or health or whatever, and so
Yeah.
it takes quite a bit of intuition, I think,
Yeah, and
also.
kind of proportioning the energy back to them
Yeah.
in a logical way, I suppose. But but yeah, sometimes I will have that person that it comes off really strong, and maybe it's good to posture with some strength back, just to maybe more so intercept their school of thought or such. But yeah, that's there's definitely some great points there, and thank you so much for that. So my other bullet point was freedom and how we can talk about freedom and how it relates to and our own freedom and how that relates to animal liberation and spreading that to everybody if we do indeed champion freedom and if we are people that believe in freedom. One way of which we can engage and appeal to people, what some of us do on the street is we'll be like, what do you think of freedom? That could be like a catalyst for the dialogue. What do you think of freedom? And reading your book Food for Freedom really brought it 2020 on how we can't really be true believers in freedom if we're taking it away from others. um, so I think that is something great for vegans to understand and be able to convey to people as well. Uh,
Oh, yeah, that's so important, especially in the last 4 or 5 years when we've seen our freedoms really
yeah,
being eroded so strongly. And
yeah,
I think that's, the underlying message from my point of view of what veganism is all about is compassion and kindness, and respect for other living beings, and inclusiveness, including all living beings within the sphere of our concern, but also really honoring and respecting the sovereignty of individual beings. That's really critically important. That's
yeah,
really, I think, what veganism is about. It's the individual cow, pig, chicken, fish, those animals, and
yeah,
honoring their being and letting them live their lives as nature intended, right? To let
yeah,
them live their lives, and we, instead of violently taking them out of their habitat and putting them into a cage in a prison and stealing their purposes. And
yeah,
what I've seen happening, of course, this has been happening for centuries and millennia, but especially in the last few years, has been an acceleration of the attack, really, on the individual sovereignty of human beings. It was really shocking to me to see how the pandemic narrative was
totally,
used to
yeah,
basically take away a lot of our basic freedoms of assembly, of religion, of speech, of the press. There was massive amounts of censorship, which is still
Yeah.
going on. Medical, bodily autonomy was really eroded, and people couldn't go to church. I mean, there was had to do this social distance, 6 feet thing. I mean, from my point of view, it was just complete, utter
Yeah.
toxic nonsense.
It,
And yet I saw so many people going along with it, even people I
yeah.
thought would understand
Yeah.
better, people in the vegan movement,
Yeah.
because if we don't have freedom of speech and assembly and bodily autonomy and so forth, we not only don't have our own sovereignty, we don't have
Yeah.
a movement. We can't really
Yeah.
defend the sovereignty of other living beings. So I think freedom of speech is the most critical thing, that we should really
Yeah.
do our best to make sure that we protect the right of all of us to say things that are unpopular, because veganism is unpopular. And if
Yeah.
we as vegans say, well, that person should be canceled because they're whatever it is, we think it's a hate speech, we think they're going against climate change, or it's
Yeah.
racist, or it's sexist, or whatever. But look, I mean, if they could come after me for saying, well, I don't think you should be drinking cow's milk because it's unhealthy or it's violent. They could say, well, you're against people who drink cow's milk. That's
Yeah.
some kind of hate speech. So
Yeah.
that whole kind of censorship, it boomerangs, and we should,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. You talk
really
a lot
understand
about the
that
boomerang
clearly.
effect.
Yeah, everything boomerangs. And so, and of course, by the same token, we have so many people who are on the bandwagon for freedom, but then they go and
Yeah.
think, well, I want to eat meat, dairy, and eggs, and
Yeah.
don't care about the freedom that they're stealing from other living beings who have interests that are as important to them as
Exactly.
their interests are to them. So I think this is something we should really come together on and liberate. And really, that's the message of my new book, Food for Freedom, is that the more we liberate animals, the more we create the foundation for human freedom. And if we
Yeah.
steal freedom from animals, we will lose it. We are losing it. Human
Yeah.
slavery and animal slavery have always gone together. And the war against animals and human war and conflict, and when we force them into disease, we get disease. This is just how it works. It's like
Yeah.
gravity. I mean, these are universal principles, and we all know that in our bones. That if we have these beings in our hands who are vulnerable, and they really are vulnerable, cows and pigs and chickens,
Yeah.
we have such technological power. We can do
Wonderful
anything to them. We can
intelligence.
genetically
Yeah.
mutate them. We can imprison them, torture them,
Yeah.
and we do.
And then
And
look what happens.
how
We
do
become livestock ourselves.
and then that exactly. And so
Yeah.
we don't
And
have the right to think
as
that we deserve freedom when we steal freedom
yeah.
from others. Right? That's
Yeah.
basically it.
That last four
And
years or since 2020 is really, we've seen how the elite has really spearheaded an initiative to really scale our becoming livestock with all these new just limitings and freedom takings. But yeah,
right.
even last night I was talking to a gentleman, a really nice guy, and I think he clicked with a few things, and he was talking about how I believe in, he said, I believe everyone should have their opinion. You can have your opinion, and you can eat your veggies, but I'm going to have my opinion and I'm going to eat my meat. And I just said, well, I understand that, but you have to understand that you're taking the freedom away from somebody else when you're doing that. And that becomes stronger than an opinion, more so of a dynamic of which you're exacting. And he took a beat, and I guess he kind of semi-recepted it. He wasn't as like, he didn't, like some people get more angry, but he was, I think, in a space to where he was more ready to hear something like that, I guess. And it made a lot of sense to him. And I think having that kind of information as vegans and people that want to spread a great message, having that kind of information on the real reality of freedom and being able to convey that in just a kind way, I think is extremely helpful. So I appreciate your thought.
Right, right. Yeah, that's how you said that to him. And
Yeah.
and I think you could have even have said it instead of that you're taking their freedom away because of your opinion, to say,
Yeah.
like, I realized that when I was eating meat, I had the same opinion, and I was taking away their freedom. Just use I statements, because
I like
as soon
that.
as I
Yeah.
say you're taking away their freedom
Yeah.
by your
True.
opinion, that
True.
subconsciously they're like, don't
Yeah,
criticize me.
there's a bit of a
I just
narrowing
think,
is
God, yeah,
happening. Yeah, I see what you're
I
saying.
realized I did the same thing, and my
Yeah,
opinions were, I realized my opinions were killing other animals. I thought, well, I mean, I don't need,
yeah,
maybe I should question that, and just kind of say it that way, and then they
yeah.
don't
That's a
feel like
great
they're
tip. Yeah,
being
that's a great tip.
criticized. Yeah,
Become a little more relatable. Just not relatable, but just I see what you're saying. It's very just practical in terms of reaching the human being. That makes a lot
right.
of sense.
To keep the defenses down, just
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
just use I statements, not never try to avoid
Yeah,
saying you are doing.
yeah.
yeah,
Well, man, well, thank you so much for this, Will. I'm definitely taking notes myself right now. And yeah, those were the three kind of bullet points I thought would be really important to bring up and for you to amplify on to, to the people in the chat or our fellow vegans. And I think that was very helpful. So thank you so much.
sure.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to just touch on like a few things, and you kind of already have as far as like the political state of things right now, and the just how we are being inundated with everything that is just mainstream intended, and um, I guess I would kind of pivot to this, like the whole Luigi Mangione thing. Like a lot of even vegans, right now are, okay, yeah, anti big pharma, anti medical. We're glad that he died, the CEO, and we're failing to see, that our heart really doesn't want to see somebody die violently like that, even though they were a person that was affecting all kinds of, not good things on others. Um, so
Mm.
I'm assuming, I know you're in the same camp with as far as me in that perspective. Like we should never
Mhm.
wish, violence on anybody else, no matter what, because we're all interconnected, and it all goes back to how we're interconnected. So I guess I just wanted to bring that up and see what you thought about that, this whole Luigi Mangione thing.
Right. Well, it pretty much like you just said. I mean, there's uh, just killing someone who's the head of a company.
Yeah,
There's a much bigger picture going on, but that leads into a question. Like our leaders, like the people in positions of power.
yeah,
Why are they the ones that are in positions of power? And I think ultimately the boomerang effect is always operating, right? People who are truly loving and wise will manifest loving and wise leaders. People
yeah,
who are dominating and violent and self-centered will manifest dominating, violent, self-centered, quote unquote, leaders.
yeah,
So for us as individuals and as a community collective to manifest great leaders, we need to be that ourselves in our daily lives. And so
yeah,
that's the unyielding dilemma. Like every day
yeah,
we get up in the morning for most people and they take out their wallet and they vote for someone to stab and
yep,
kill an animal, right? They're voting for that over, and that's where we really vote is with our dollars. Those
yeah,
votes always get counted. And so if I'm voting for for fish sticks and cheese and eggs and hamburgers and all these things, I'm paying people to stab and abuse and kill and sexually harm other living beings
yeah,
routinely and relentlessly. We create the necessity for the same thing to be reflected on us. I mean, we're creating a lot of fear, and we are ourselves invisible killers of these animals. And now we're
yeah,
terrified of terrorists, we're terrified of viruses, we're terrified of all these
yeah,
invisible killers, and we create those. Since we see these beautiful beings merely as livestock, we reduce them to quote unquote livestock. Then pretty soon we're looked at as livestock, and we're
yeah,
manipulated the same way.
yeah,
So that's the thing. So, any kind of desperate attempt to like try to kill some
yeah,
perceived bad person, we have to look in the mirror and
yeah,
understand that we have, but that's a beautiful thing, because when we were born on this earth, the thing to understand is our life is pretty brief. We're just here. We come in and we get immediately just bombarded with a whole set of narratives and concepts and ideas and a language and a whole context. And so we are really programmed. We're like a little sponge. We just soak it all up. and then
Yeah.
our spirit, right? Our true nature. Because where I come from, really through many years of meditation, is that what we are is not this body. What we are is not the collection of the name and the form and the ideas and the history and what I like and I don't. The thing we identify with, that's not us. What we are is far greater than that. And so
Yeah.
that wisdom, that eternal spirit of our true nature, works through all this. And as we get stronger and connect more fully and deeply with our true nature,
Yeah.
which is eternal, it was never born and will never die, then we begin to see more clearly what's really going on. And we realize that we're here with a mission. We're here
Yeah.
in some way to fulfill a purpose, to grow, to learn, that we have unique gifts and strengths and abilities. For me, a lot of it is writing and music and other things, connecting with nature and so forth. Everybody has what they have. My wife, Madeline's an amazing artist. And
Yeah.
so, but so we have our talents. And so to bring those to bear, to help co-create and build a more
Yeah.
enlightened, joyful society. But it's only a short time. We're just here
Yeah.
for a few short decades. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
in my seventh decade already. I can't hardly believe it. It just
Yeah. I
flies
just
by.
entered
Just
my
a few.
fourth not too long ago,
Yeah,
and I still can't believe it.
right.
It's a blink of an
I
eye.
know. Just a
Blink of
few
an
days
eye.
ago, I was in my 20s. So it goes by very quickly. So
Yeah.
every day is precious. We have an
Yeah.
opportunity. It's valuable. And the more we feel that, the more we feel the value of other living beings, the more we
Yeah.
connect with our inner wisdom. And we realize that we don't get somewhere by tearing other people down and destroying. We create by creating something new that makes whatever is toxic, it makes it obsolete, right? Just let
Yeah.
people go, oh yeah, we don't need that anymore. We're creating we're creating a food forest where we grow our own food with no
Yeah.
herbicides, no pesticides, no manure, no bone meal and blood meal, and it's healthy. And we create communities. We create, people can create vegan restaurants and online communities doing like what you're doing right now, create conversations. Be
Yeah.
creative. Be
Yeah, and that's the
creative.
last
Don't be
chapter in your
destructive.
book. The
Yeah.
World Peace Way was there's the six, right? I don't know if I can remember them. I know the first one was food. I think spirituality and meditation. I know six was creativity, and then God, there's three in between
Healthy
there. Healthy
relationships
relationships,
and
yes,
exercise and movement
and
and connecting
nature,
with
and then
nature.
nature. That was the
Nature,
other one,
right?
I think. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can't. Well, I was telling my wife the other day, this guy, I can't believe him. He actually wrote the World Peace Diet, most of it by hand in nature. That's unbelievable. But it just, makes sense. It makes sense that you would do that. But what did I want to bring up? Oh yeah. So, you were talking about how one of our big purposes is to realize I guess our purpose and how we interconnect with everybody else and how our infinite consciousness connects with everybody else in this kind of infinite consciousness. And I know I finished the World Peace Way last night, and the last chapter or the last thing you left us with was the B flat,
Yeah.
the kind of anecdote of the B flat and how by itself and just acting alone, maybe in its own self-interest, I don't know if that's how you viewed it, it's not very profound. But once it starts being integrated with everything else and all the other
Yeah.
interconnectedness, it starts to just really shine how it was meant to shine. And that was just a beautiful thing. And it's funny. I literally just finished it last night. I wanted to finish it before
Great.
talking to you. And
Right.
I think that book, The World Peace Way, the World Peace Diet, Your Inner Islands, all of your work, Food for Freedom, I would highly recommend every single vegan pick them up just to enhance your knowledge and have different notions under your belt of which you can communicate with and really articulate and appeal to people's their good hearts and their ethos. Most people have very strong ethoses, I think, underneath.
Right.
And it's just a matter of kind of syncing, I guess, the values with the actions.
Exactly. Right.
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Will Tuttle, thank you so much. I think
Okay.
that's all I had for you. And I'm just so grateful that you came to the channel
Yeah.
and were able to really, just educate me and my fellow vegans and non-vegans on some really powerful thoughts. So thank you, sir. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you. It's a really beautiful backdrop you have right there, by the way. You beat mine. I
I
got a
know.
wall and a sofa, and you got like this
Well,
utopia, this beautiful nature behind you. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're in West Palm Beach for about a month and a half with Hippocrates Wellness Institute, giving lectures and concerts here. And it's really great to see people come here with diabetes and liver disease and cancer and obesity and arthritis, and just eating really healthy plant-based food and exercising and with learning about vegan values. Tremendous things happen. People really
yeah,
turn those
yeah,
disease states around, and so
yeah,
we're here for a few weeks to plant those seeds here as part
yeah.
of our lecture tour, our winter lecture tour. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
that's awesome. I'd love to see you in person one day. I don't know if you tour. I'm in the Maryland area, but I'd love to meet you and
mm,
see you in person one day. So, I'll keep my eye out for your tour.
I will.
And
Yeah.
yeah, well, thank you so much for everything you do. And I just really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
being here.
Thank you,
Um,
James. Yeah.
and yeah, good luck with your
It's
endeavor
great.
down there. I'm sure you're being just a great help to everybody. So thank you for everything
Thank
you
you.
do, sir.
Great. Okay. Take care. Thanks,
Gonna end the
everyone.
stream. Thank you so much. Have
All
a
right.
great day. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye bye.
There we go.